Hello, welcome to Sobriety Bestie. I am Kirsten, and this video is about the last time I got drunk, which was September 28th, 2009. So it was exactly 13 years ago today, which means tomorrow is my sobriety birthday. And so a little reminiscing, a little thinking about what it was like, and man, life is so different now. And so I got sober on a Tuesday, so the last day I drank alcohol ever was on a Monday. September 28th, 2009 was a Monday. And so in order to explain that day, I need to kind of back up to Saturday, right? Like, you feel me? Like, if you want to explain a specific drunk, there was maybe other drinking that led into that, right? At least if you drank the way that I did. And so part of the reason why I'm sharing this video with you, making this video for you, even though, I don't know, I guess it's a little bit embarrassing or personal or intimate, is because I don't want you to be watching these videos on my channel and feel like I never drank like you, I never got it like you, like it was always easy for me or anything like that. I don't want you to think that. I know people have written me before saying you don't understand how bad it is. And so it was really bad for me. And so I don't understand what it's like for you specifically, but I want to at least share some of my story with you. So maybe you relate, maybe you don't. That Saturday night before I got sober, the Saturday before I got sober, I went out to a bar, and in San Francisco, last call is at 2 a.m. And literally you cannot buy alcohol after 2 a.m. The conveyor belt at the grocery store stops. So we left the bar around 1:40 or something. We go to the grocery store with our new friends from the bar. We buy the booze by 2 a.m. We go back to my friend's house and we drink. And I made a couple of mistakes that night, which was, first of all, sleeping at her house. I crashed on her couch that night. So when I woke up Sunday morning, I didn't realize this at the time. And maybe this is something you're navigating right now, or maybe you can relate, or maybe this wasn't your story at all. I didn't have my meds with me. I was on Klonopin at the time, benzodiazepines. So I didn't have my benzos with me, so I didn't take my pill that night, because I took one every morning and every night as prescribed by my doctor. But even though I took them as prescribed, and I have a whole playlist on benzos, I'll pop it up here. Even though I took benzos as prescribed, I was dependent upon them. I was physically, chemically dependent, maybe probably even emotionally and spiritually dependent upon them. So I didn't know it back then, but when I missed one or missed two, I would go through, the benzo withdrawals would start. So when I woke up at her house on Sunday morning, and remember, Monday was the last day I ever drank. So when I woke up on that Sunday morning at her house, I was not only probably in alcohol withdrawal, but I was also in benzo withdrawal. And at that point in my mental health, I had agoraphobia, which is a fear of leaving the house. So when she was in the shower, I went to leave the house and I froze and I felt physically unable to leave her house. It's really hard to be agoraphobic at somebody else's house. I just want to say, because it feels so emotional to even say that, if this is something that you're going through, if you've been afraid to leave the house or you relate to that, it does get a lot better. It can get a lot easier. That's not permanent, right? And so I didn't know what to do. And if you drank like me, then you'll get what I did, right? What did I do? Can you guess what I did? I was afraid to leave the house, but I had to leave. I was terrorized. So I drank, right? Because morning drinking. I went into her freezer. She had vodka in her freezer. I drank vodka out of her freezer. She had a 7-Up bottle, by the way. Sorry, I stole your booze, friend. She had a 7-Up bottle, a 20-ounce 7-Up bottle in her fridge. I poured some of the vodka into there. I drank enough for me to be able to get into a cab. And then to take that cab back to my place. My apartment was probably 10 minutes from hers. But I had that cab stop at a liquor store near my house. Now, there were 3 liquor stores near my house. There was I lived in San Francisco in Russian Hill. Across the street and down 2 doors was the corner, and that was the corner store that I usually went to. Then up 1 block further was another liquor store that I alternated at, so that the corner store closest to me didn't know how much I drank. Do you relate to that? Did you have multiple places where you got it from so nobody would know how much you drank? And then there was also a third spot, 2 blocks down the street, this liquor barn kind of a place that was, that sometimes I would go there, but typically I went to the one near me or the one a block and a half away. So that day I went to the one a block and a half away. I had the taxi driver drop me off there while I was finishing the vodka in the car in the taxi in the morning. It's probably 11 a.m. or something if I had to make up the time. I got champagne, came back to my house with a champagne, and while I was there, I was just relieved, of the terror I felt in the morning, the agoraphobia. I felt relieved of that because I had had a couple of drinks in me at that point, but I couldn't stop drinking. Once I started drinking, I couldn't stop. So I kept drinking. I was drinking that champagne, and I was supposed to, like, it was just another day that, like, I wasn't able to show up for life, and I was really, really down on myself. And so it was my roommate's dad's birthday, and I was supposed to go to his birthday party, and she was there, and I was home drinking by myself in the morning on Sunday. And so I felt really bad that I couldn't go. Clearly I couldn't drive at that point. Clearly I couldn't go anywhere by the state of my being when I woke up. I don't remember if I took a benzo at that point or not, or if I took one later that night, but I was not traveling well. I was not doing well. I was really I had a lot of terror at that time. Like, I was always so freaked out. That's why I drank in the morning. I never wanted to drink in the morning. I only drank in the morning because it was either like have this long panic attack or drink, and like, it just wasn't a good place to be in. And I don't know if like that's where you're at now. Like, life can change, life can get better. For me, I had to quit drinking in order for life to get better. It felt like I was on this downward spiral of like alcohol and anxiety and more alcohol and catching traumas on the way until I actually stopped. So while I was drinking the champagne by myself on Sunday morning, which must have been September 27th, 2009, somebody started instant messaging me on Facebook, one of my friends. And I told her, like, no, I didn't go to the party, his party tonight, because she knew my roommate too. I can't keep doing this, is what I basically said to her. I felt so filled with shame and guilt for not going that it was another event that I couldn't show up to. Like, I couldn't show up for life. And this was like the straw that broke, the metaphorical camel's back. So I told her, like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep not showing up. I feel so bad. And she's like, why don't you quit drinking? Why don't you go to rehab? The next thing I know, she's on the phone, because we're instant messaging on Facebook. She's on the phone. She calls up all these rehabs. And so she kind of like got me into a place I didn't believe I was an alcoholic. I knew I had a problem with alcohol. I thought I could do yoga to like move on from my alcohol problem. So I didn't believe in a higher power or God. I didn't want to do the 12 steps. I didn't want to be an alcoholic or go to Alcoholics Anonymous. So that was really clear. I was really clear with her on that. And so she found a rehab that was non-12 step, non-God, non-AA affiliated, that was in Los Angeles. And she talked to them, and basically I was kind of signed up for rehab. Like, all I had to do was like call them and like do the intake and speak with them about it and pay, right? And so, it kind of felt like exciting, weird. Like, my roommate came home from her dad's birthday party, and she's like, I heard you're going to rehab. And she brought champagne home. She's like, I brought home champagne to celebrate. So now her and I are drinking that bottle of champagne. And we're like, yes, this is going to be great. And I was drunk. I was really drunk. I've been drinking since I woke up. And so what I did was, and this ended up being really brilliant, I ended up telling my brother, so somebody from my family, I called him. I told a friend, my drinking buddy whose house I had slept at the night before. I told her I was going to rehab. And I knocked on the neighbor's door, and I tried to tell him and I used to always smoke cigarettes. We had like a fire escape that joined our San Francisco apartments. And so I used to always smoke cigarettes there with him. And so I knocked on the door to tell him he wasn't home, but I told his wife. And so basically I told a neighbor, a family member, and a friend. So I told someone from each area or different areas of my life, right? And then the next morning came, and I felt like, that was dramatic. Wait, did we talk about rehab? Like, what the hell? I'm not going to rehab. I don't want to go to rehab. And so it felt like it was really dramatic. And then I remembered that, I told people. And it was like my pride and shame kind of came together, and I was like, people know I have a problem. Like, I admitted I had a problem. Like, people in my family and my friends and my neighbor, they know. I was like, it's over. Like, I have to go. Like, I do have a problem. And so I ended up calling the intake lady at the rehab in LA in Malibu, and I talked to her for a while, and it felt like it was the first time anybody really understood me, the first time I was ever really honest with anybody. She seemed to totally get it. She seemed really happy. She was 7 or 10 or something years sober. I don't remember. And I just felt relieved talking to her. And I specifically wanted to go to a rehab like out of town, like out of San Francisco where I lived, because I didn't want to see anybody that I knew. I felt so embarrassed. I felt like I had completely fucked up my life, and life was over, and I was terrified. I couldn't imagine a life without alcohol. So it was like, it was crazy to consider this. And so that morning, that Monday morning, the last day I ever drank, September 28th, 2009, I didn't drink in the morning, even though I was really anxious and filled with terror and panic. And normally I would drink to make that calm down. But I didn't drink until I figured out the rehab thing. I was like, I need to figure it out with a lady on the phone, and I need to pack if I'm going to go, and I need to buy a plane ticket if I'm going to go and fly to LA and figure that out before I drink, and then I could drink. So I did. Like I talked to the lady. I threw like a bunch of random clothes in a suitcase. I mean, what do you pack for rehab? So once everything was done, I ended up meeting my boyfriend for dinner. We had this really nice sushi dinner. He thought I didn't need to go to rehab. He thought maybe just slow down, but I also hid a lot of drinking from him, so he didn't know how much I drank. Like I would drink before I went and hung out with him, or when he wasn't looking, essentially. Like I'm in the kitchen drinking and he's in the other room. So he didn't really know how much I drank. And so I knew I needed to go. I knew it was over. And I couldn't keep being like waking up and in a panic and needing to drink first thing in the morning. Like I couldn't keep doing that. I couldn't keep not showing up for the people that I cared about in my life. Like I just felt like, and I was unemployable. I knew my brain wasn't working and there was no way I was going to be able to get a job. At that point, I was about 4 weeks unemployed. I'd had a job for 3 years before that, and then I got laid off, and I had about 4 weeks until I got sober from when I got laid off. And I knew the way my brain was that I wasn't able to think clearly, and I couldn't learn something new, like as in a new job. So I just knew it was over. Like it has to be over. And I knew that in like my innermost core. I knew that I was almost dying. I knew that alcohol was killing me, and I was very, very close to losing my life, and that I had to stop. Rehab felt dramatic, but I knew I had to stop. And I knew that he didn't quite get it because I was never really honest with him or really anybody about it. Like nobody really knew, but I knew. Like my soul knew. Like I couldn't bullshit myself. Like it was over. It had to be over. Otherwise I was going to die. Like that was just very, very obvious in all of my cells. So him and I go to like a sushi dinner. We share a bottle of wine. It was my favorite wine. So we share it. It was very like a beautiful dinner. And then we go to his house and we ended up sharing another bottle of wine there. So I did have a bottle of wine total. That was the last day I ever drank. I wouldn't say at that point I was really drunk necessarily. I mean, probably buzzed, but it was more like a peaceful, beautiful goodbye on that last time. Instead of getting just like, totally smashed, which I had done on that Saturday night and then Sunday all day, starting from the morning into the night. So that Monday night, September 28th, 2009, we drank, and I was like, this is my last cigarette. I was all dramatic. I'm gonna have a new life. I was terrified and scared, and I didn't quit smoking for 6 more months. I thought I'd quit before I went to rehab, but that didn't happen. Rehab was too overwhelming. Like I quit for a couple of days, then I started smoking again in rehab because I was completely overwhelmed, and I wasn't ready, I quit smoking cigarettes in April 2010. So 6 months after I got sober. So that was it. That was it. It was, I quit because I had to, because I didn't see any other way, of living. Like I felt like I was choosing life or that was it. Like I had to choose life, and life meant no more alcohol. Like that was it. To diagnose alcohol, it's actually called alcohol use disorder, and it's a spectrum from mild to moderate to severe. I was never diagnosed with anything related to alcohol. If I had to self-diagnose, I would say at the time of my last drink, September 28th, 2009, 13 years ago today, that I probably would have been on the severe side, just because the nature of how my drinking was at the end. And maybe I'll do another video of like what my cycles of drinking were like at the end. But I think you get the gist. It's like drinking because I had to, not because I wanted to. Drinking because I couldn't stop. And when I did stop, I couldn't stay stopped. It wasn't working anymore. My life there was no way forward. I had a flash where I could see that there was no way forward, that it was a matter of time until my money was going to run out. I had some savings, right? I didn't have a job. I knew I couldn't get a job. And I just had this flash of it. It's just going to be a moment and a matter of time until my bank account runs down and I am homeless and then it's just going to get worse from there. And then I'm going to be, and this is no shame against anybody who is homeless, but I had a vision of myself being an IV drug user, prostitute on the street in Tenderloin, San Francisco. And I was like, that is where I'm going. That is where this goes. There is no other place that this goes. It was like a moment of clarity where I was like, that is exactly where I'm going, and I need to get the fuck off that path. Otherwise, that is my life. That is where it's going to head. and I need to like take a sharp turn. I didn't think I was an alcoholic, but I had to get the fuck off the alcoholic track. Whoa. Like, that's really what it was. There was like that. I knew I was about to die. There was that moment of clarity of this is where it goes. And I'm not shaming anybody who sold their body for heroin and lived on the streets. That's definitely not what I'm shaming. I just saw that that is exactly what I was walking into. And I wanted to go over here. I didn't want that pain. I wanted to see if I can gather up any sort of brain cells that I had left and do something with my life. And so yeah. So 13 years ago today was the last time I ever drank alcohol. Are you sober? Are you not drinking? How long has it been? How long are you sober? How long have you been sober? Are you trying to quit? What is that like? Do you relate to any of this? Can't wait to hear from you in the comments. Let's make it a conversation. Yeah. Woo. It's really good to be sober. I never imagined it was possible. I never thought I could go, like, I couldn't go a month. I could not go a month. I never would have imagined I could have gone a year, let alone 13, or however much longer I go, right? My intention is to never drink again. And so it is possible. And that one phrase, like, even though some of the recovery phrases are annoying, and maybe they're annoying for you and they're annoying for me, or we grow to love different ones at different times or hate them all or whatever, but the phrase like one day at a time was really helpful. It was like, I'm just not going to drink today. I can't imagine never drinking again. I'm just not going to drink today. And those todays add up. You know, just keep not drinking today. And those todays added up. And holy fucking shit, they've added up to 13 years just about tomorrow, right? Woo! So there you have it, my last day ever drinking alcohol, my last time ever getting drunk. I have a whole playlist on early sobriety, which you might want to check out. And I have another playlist on emotions in sobriety, emotional sobriety. How do you navigate the emotional roller coaster that is sobriety, especially the first few years? So be sure to check out those playlists if they are relevant to you. And as always, I wish you much peace and freedom on your healing journey.